All right, everyone. Today, what I want to talk about, and it's going to upset a lot of people. I want to talk about how to avoid or not be a part of this fake XRP wealth transfer. And there are a lot of people that have been having dreams, hearing prophets, listening to gurus that have been putting all of their money into XRP. And about 8 months ago, I flipped the switch. You see, I started with XRP at 2 cents, sold my house to buy XRP, made a lot of money in XRP, but I could have made a lot more if I would have followed what I was doing in 2017 to 2018, where I turned 10 grand into $1 million. And 6 or 8 months ago, I announced that I'd liquidated half my XRP. It sent the whole XRP army into a flurry because, quite frankly, that group has become quite a cult. And through deceptive practices and clever advertising, there has been a way for companies to be able to offload, I think, about 1 billion tokens a month into diamond hands. And I want to talk about that and what you're missing out on and why you're not going to make as much money as possible in this next cycle. And part of that next cycle is the base ecosystem that's already blowing up that you probably don't understand because it's actually quite convoluted. Today's the last day. I'm going to link down below the course on it, where Dylan and I are going to teach you everything. We're shutting down enrollment after midnight tonight for a little bit to get everybody onboarded, to teach you about the exchanges, how to use them, how to download the wallets, secure the wallets, and how to identify these projects. And then we're going to start rolling out new projects, these micro caps, where you look at very tiny little bits where you put into them and you start understanding how these cycles in these new projects take off. If you guys made money on Clanker, do me a favor and type Clanker down below. I'm so happy for all of you that took profits. You now register to win in crypto. I want to start with a little definition called courageous. I didn't make it up. I wish I did. Someone named Zachary did. And I gave it a definition because he couldn't say courage for some reason. And he said courageous. And it hit me. I'm going to define courageous as the art of creative courage. You know, most people don't think about, they think courage is doing what no one else would do, or most people wouldn't, but also doing what may scare you. As a firefighter, I'm scared of heights. I gotta be honest with you, I'm scared of heights. And there was a lad, this has to do with crypto, okay? There was this, I've never ever even questioned my fear of heights when someone's life was at stake, whether it be rappelling down a hill, a cliff, all of that stuff, running up, 70, 80 foot tower ladders on a truck. Never thought about it because I cared more and I was more excited about the save, to be honest with you. We used to do something called an auditorium raise. We took a 35-foot ladder. We would put it on its straight up. We would bring it all the way to full extension, 35 foot. We'd tie ropes at the top, and 4 firefighters would hold the base. 4 firefighters would hold the ropes out at different angles. This was very sketchy. And we would have to climb up it, and then we would have to get over the top and crawl down the other side. Now, all the time we had a harness on, and there was a tower truck with a ladder and a tower above it with a pulley system. In case we fell, we'd just fall and they would slowly bring us down. But it was scary, right? Well, in investing, it's easy to follow the flow. And there's all these people that are out there, buy XRP. It's going to revalue tomorrow. Let me ask you this. Type yes or no. Has it revalued yet? And just throwing this out there, right after your answer, throw out how long it's been, how many months or years it's been, you've been hearing that same thing. And in the meantime, there has been all of these projects that we've been talking on this channel. Say, look at putting a little bit in, understand the team, do your due diligence. Don't follow some fake guru out there. And when I say fake, I'm talking about somebody that looks, they're wearing a suit and a tie, and before they became a YouTuber, and they're talking real deep, and I know everything. I'm a financial guy, they probably got like a couple grand in XRP. They didn't fully commit. Now I fully committed into XRP, but in this last spring, I kept seeing these cycles replay out in coins, just like I used to invest in them in 2017. I said, all right, it's time to start teaching people how to do this. Just the other day, I made 2 days ago, I made 65% in one day on one project I never talked about on the channel because I just played the cycle. Brand new coin hits the market exchange. It had a airdrop prior, so a bunch of plebs that had like 25 bucks, 50 bucks worth of this token just dumped it on the open market. I'd already researched the team, solid project, let the price collapse by 80%, picked it up at the bottom, and then all of a sudden that volume just all of a sudden people are like, ooh, this is a deal, because they just started advertising and it popped, sold it. There's a lot of money to be made in this. That's why we're jumping on the base ecosystem now, because that thing in a year from now, everyone's going to be freaking out over base. But I want people involved before. That's why I started talking about React. And that's why Dylan and I brought out the React project when it was down and market sentiment was at its lowest. The fear index was at its highest in crypto, because I knew people wouldn't pump in there. And I said, hey, only look at picking up 50 bucks, 100 bucks, learn about this project, have just the littlest skin in the game, watch the amount of wallets expand and open up, and watch what happens to the community, and watch that price just start going up. If people listen, when I first started talking about it at 6 cents, they're well over 120% return right now. And you're going to see that thing continue to climb because the team's going to keep coming out with more and more progress, and you've seen the roadmap, and it's just going to get better and better, especially as more and more people are talking about on the internet. These are the things that I keep telling people about. This Definitive project, there's a link down below to it. It is, in my opinion, one of the best, if not the best, decentralized exchange in the world, where you can access any coin in the world. And as Coinbase goes down, this doesn't go down because it's decentralized and it's tied into a bunch of other APIs of other DEXs, and it runs on so many different chains. The fees are stupid cheap, but most people don't know about it. And as they just turned on their flywheel for their token, watch that price continue to go up. Everybody's looking at XRP as the answer, and tomorrow it's going to go up, tomorrow it's going to go up. And that belief is holding a bunch of gamblers, a bunch of people with just smoke and hopium, holding on to that thing. And look, you've seen XRP, like I said, it ran up to what, 3 something, and then went down to $1.60. That's a 50% drop. It did exactly what all these other ones did, but in that same amount of time, back in the spring, just check this out, watch. Anyone that listened back in the spring and took a little bit off the top XRP when I talked about it and started moving in little bits into these other projects and started winning, type 1. Watch this. And if you type 1 and I give some examples, I think people need to understand how this works. Because you keep your core positions, but then you take a little bit of your profit out and you start to layer in on multiple other positions, and you start to learn the actual industry of blockchain. You actually start learning about this. Now look at how many people started doing this, right? This is the big deal that I'm talking about. Some are massive winners, others haven't done crap other than their first move, and all of them are right, or most of them right now are back to exactly where we talked about. Why? Because the entire market went through that sinkhole in the middle of summer. They're all still amazing projects. They're all paying employees, hiring more. You go on X and you look at these company profiles. We're hiring, we're expanding, we're starting new projects. Like, it's insane. But most people would rather have the hopium than put in a little bit of work. And that's what I wanted to share with you today, why that's so important. If you want to be a part of the base course, you want to learn all about the base ecosystem, I'm going to start highlighting projects on that channel or on that course. Some I may talk about on the channel, others I will never talk about. Will be bringing on teams as my goal throughout this entire year to teach the students exactly how to use their product, their token, what it's all about, stuff that you won't see on the internet at all. So I'm pretty excited because Dylan and I have been traveling the world and meeting teams, and they've been figuring out what I'm really about. And that's the total opposite of all these other social media creators. And so when they find out I don't accept money for talking about projects I've actually invested my real hard-earned money into, it's a whole different conversation. And they want to reach out and help people. So I'm really excited. Again, not every project's going to win, but when you put little bits of money instead of big bits. I heard from a gentleman the other day, he was still sort of thinking about or contemplating a decision he thinks he made an error in the past because he put a bulk amount of money. I said, think about this, if you would have put less into that, and it would have failed. Just like I've had lots of businesses that haven't gone well because business partners that don't think big. I think too big for most people. Okay. They just want their little honey hole of money, and they don't want to do something great. Um, I look at every single one of those as a learning lesson, because I'll never make that mistake again. And then I'll never make that mistake and that mistake. And then I keep going from winning to winning to winning, because the less mistakes you make right off the bat, the easier it is to win. So if you want that, today I'm going to close registration of that course for a little bit while we get everybody on board and get them hooked up to the new exchange. Everyone getting dialed in, and then start getting ready for the first project to roll out. All right, with that being said, the Economic Ninja is out.